guys today. Sierra Club is an environmental organization, and we're the largest environmental organization in the country, and we've been around for about 100 years. So we get involved in one extreme. We promote the acquisition of land for conservation, and also have free hikes out to our local parks. And if you go on Meetup, and if you Google Meetup Tampa Bay Sierra Club, you can see what we have coming up. Sign up for it, and you don't have to be a member to come on our hikes. But anyway, we also do we do many kinds of things. We got involved in the state park issue, and we were a big force there. But also we do endorsements, candidate endorsements, at the local, state, and national level, and we look at amendments. And so today I'm here to talk about Amendment 2. If you haven't already heard about Amendment 2, which is the right to hunt and fish, this is an amendment that you say, well, yeah, at first you say, yeah, the right to hunt and fish. Well, that sounds good. And then people get a little confused. They say, wait a minute, don't we already have that right? And the answer is yes, we do. We have a Florida statute, 379.104, that gives people the right to hunt and fish in Florida. But there are some restrictions on hunting and fishing in Florida. You can only shoot black bears at certain times. Why anyone wants to shoot a black bear, I don't know, because you can't eat them. Native Americans used to, and maybe a few still do, but you can't do anything with them. It's just purely for the sake of killing. Panthers, Florida panthers, are endangered. Manatees, that's on the fishing side of this amendment, they're endangered. So there's limitations on what you can do in regard to hunting and fishing that are there for the protection of the wildlife and the marine life. Sierra Club has joined in a coalition, and what we do is we study the issue, as many of the organizations talked about, League of Women Voters, and before we take a position, and we joined with other organizations that are opposed to Amendment 2, and there's maybe about 50 of them, in the no-to-2.org coalition. That's NOTO, the number 2.org. And it has a list of all the organizations that oppose this amendment, but also it gives a lot of documentation for the rationale, which is much broader than what I'm going to share with you today. There's vague language in this amendment. Now, as League of Women Voters said earlier today, you only have 75 words you can use. But there were some words that, let's say, protect private property rights that they took out. And maybe there's some intent behind that, and we are very skeptical about the right to hunt and fish on private property, or pursue wildlife onto private property, because you have the right to hunt and fish. In many states, and what this does is this enshrines the right to hunt and fish at the highest level of our laws, the constitutional amendment, and it precludes any further restrictions on hunting and fishing, and undermines those protections in laws, both at the state level and at local levels. It undermines the laws that are already there and leaves them open to challenge, because people have a right to hunt and fish, and this law or that law restricts it in some way. So those laws can be challenged. And in states where the right to hunt and fish has already passed, we have seen a rollback of protections. Like, for example, in North Carolina, they are now allowed to hunt bears in a bear sanctuary. And there's various other ways that, depending on what organizations get involved and what they want to challenge, they can challenge existing laws, but then they preclude new laws. So that's why we are against Amendment 2. But also, we're talking about democracy here today. And I don't know, how many of you are familiar with the term preemption, preemptive laws? Okay. I would probably say many of you already know way more than you think you do, but I'm going to, and when I tell you about it, you will recognize it. Preemption is it's kind of a trend going through the state legislature, where they pass at a high level, at the state level, laws that prohibit certain types of regulation. And here they're using the highest law in Florida, which is the constitutional amendment. It's even higher than state laws. And so what they're saying is, if this law passes, then you can't have limits on hunting and fishing. And you certainly can't pass new limits, and they can challenge the old ones. Okay, some of this may be familiar to you. There is a ban on plastic bag bans. Sierra Club is real involved in the issue of plastics and litter in the environment and overuse of plastics in our lifestyle. Many cities and counties passed bans on plastic bags, requiring people at the grocery store to use reusable bags. There's a ban on that. Publix actually was behind it, any of you public shoppers. Tree protection. They've been undermined with preemptive legislation. Local fertilizer ordinances undermined with at the state level. So, and what these laws do is they undermine what we call home rule. And that's another term you should be familiar with because it's important. It means passing a law or passing the ability to pass regulation at the local level, which is probably closest to the problem or issue that they're trying to deal with. Not at the state level. A one-size-fits-all law at the state level may not work very well at the local level. But there's a lot of preemptive laws going on. So if you hear of a law, that maybe even one that sounds really good, a proposed law, and you start to get a little confused, you're not wrong. You just need to dig a little deeper and find out more about what the law is about. Because it might be a preemption, it might be a Trojan horse type law that sounds good at the superficial level, but when you learn more about it, it has some negatives that take away some of your rights. And that's how preemptive laws, like Amendment 2, undermine your rights. They trick voters into voting for things that sound good. In 2016, there was an amendment related to solar energy sponsored by the utilities. And I won't go into the whole context of why this was such a victory, but they told people that they had a right to solar energy. Wow, we have a right to solar energy. Well, anyone who wants to put solar on the roof and can afford it can do it. So what's so new about this? But people could vote for it or against it, but it would have restricted solar at the back end after the law passed. So I just want to tell you about in the Tampa Bay Times and Florida and the Orlando Sun Sentinel have come out against Amendment 2, and there are other newspapers who are evaluating. You're going to be hearing more from other boards. So take a stand to support our democracy and vote no on Amendment 2. And I don't know if I have time for questions. It sounds like I don't, right? Did I use
Maybe
up all my
2
time?
questions? Anybody got a question?
I have a question. I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm against Amendment 2, but in it says it does not limit authority granted to the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. Do you know what that means?
Well, they say it doesn't, but it's not very specific. Ultimately, it could. We think it could. Because they are responsible for putting regulations in place to protect our wildlife. So we think ultimately it could. Yes?
So people can't get solar anymore? There's no...
Oh, no. We voted that amendment down. We voted no. And it
Right.
took away some of the barriers that would have happened
Oh, okay.
to solar.
What it did was it tried to lower the cost you could charge to sell your solar back to the grid.
Yes, that's called net metering, yes.
So the way they calculated that fee was a lot lower for people. So people
Okay.
would now want to put solar on their house,
Got
but
it,
you
got it.
couldn't get your money, make it a good investment.
Okay.
But luckily, people saw what it was and they voted it
Got it. I just got a little confused.
down. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what it was.
I don't know if we have time for more questions. Okay, well, thank you so much for...